Hello, international friends. Skull Babylon here, one of your co-hosts for Paradigm Shift Radio, along with Michael Brazel. Paradigm Shift Radio is the new interactive show to assist in the evolution of consciousness. You're about to listen to our show from July 7th, 2012, with our guest Teal Scott, Spiritual Catalyst. There's a lot of ground covered in this episode, but it began with a few technical glitches which apparently are not uncommon for when Teal gets around technology. In our conversation, some of the highlights covered are a regular brief news and introduction about Paradigm Shift communities from across the world. When we get into our interview with Teal, we talk about her experiences of being involved with a cult at a young age. From there, we get talking about the sacred feminine, what the world literally looks like through Teal's eyes, veils of illusion, living from the heart, sacred geometry, manifesting intent in this reality, and a bit about dimensions, dreams, and lucid dreaming. So stay tuned past this musical interlude for the original recording of the show, and if you have not already, please join us on Facebook at facebook.com/ParadigmShiftLondon. Join us live for next week's show if you can, but in the meantime, be sure to enjoy listening to this one. Have fun!
All right, well, in the meantime, Michael, do you want me to fill them in on some news?
Yeah, fill them on some news and
right.
any other thing, and then maybe you can go ahead and do a brief intro on Teal.
Sure. So, for all of you tuning in, thank you for taking part in this collective education process. This is something that what we're doing is only half as important as the fact that you're listening to it. So thank you for being there to listen to it. So you are listening to Paradigm Shift Radio. This is a new project, and the whole idea of it is all about collective education. It's about assisting in the evolution of consciousness is the tagline that we're using. And what is Paradigm Shift? Well, Paradigm Shift in itself is a collective of emerging communities that are beginning to appear all over the globe. I myself am part of Paradigm Shift London. Michael is part of Paradigm Shift DC. And some quick news is that within the last few days, there's been another couple paradigm shifts that are beginning to emerge, with more on the rise. And part of the outreach was because if you've been paying attention to some of the posts, I imagine quite a few of you are actually been directed here from Spirit Science, which is great because I've been talking to Jordan for on and off for over a year now, I guess, because it's really been it's gone by fast. But Jordan of Spirit Science, great guy, great work, and he's got me as part of the new media member on Spirit Science. So big shout out to spiritscience.net. Everyone here, I imagine the majority of people here are familiar with their work. If you haven't checked it out, go to www.thespiritscience.net. Check out what they got. Some really educational stuff. So because of that, we're definitely going to be able to reach out to a wider audience, which is really what this is about, because the more we reach out to people, the more we're going to get people involved. And like I said, since the whole me being associated with Spirit Science thing happened, and one of the videos that I had went up, which was titled "The Shift Is You," that one has been getting around, and I've been getting a lot of really great feedback on it. And people are saying, you know what, I really like what you're doing. I like how you're going out there and engaging with your community. I like this whole paradigm shift idea. I'm going to do it too in my community, which is great, because basically the whole idea of a paradigm shift community is just to create a physical community where people can come out and practice in conversation, which is really what we're doing here, just in a virtual sense, so to speak. So some of the most recent paradigm shifts to emerge that I know of are Paradigm Shift Barrie, Paradigm Shift Muskoka, and Paradigm Shift Stettler, in Alberta. And Muskoka and Barrie are in Ontario as well. And I know there are others that are going to be in the early stages, but you know what? Everything that is big begins small. So one of the things that I tell people is that if you're looking to get a paradigm shift community started, all you really need is a place like a library or just even a park, and just create an opportunity and post up and create a Facebook page, invite your friends, and just practice having some of the conversations that you usually don't get a chance to have in a normal public sphere. So practice talking about chakras and dreaming and UFOs and all that. And Michael, what's our status as it is right now?
I'm still trying to get Teal into the queue right now, so we're still working on that.
All right. Well, that's all right because there's a little bit more news that I wanted to share with you guys. And, just in terms of helping get the message out there, one of the things, and this is just sort of a true story because I just did it earlier today. I have a poster for the event that we have with our Paradigm Shift London, which our weekly meetings are called Consciousness Camp, and they're every Friday. And for those who are in London, Ontario, you can always come out. They're open to everyone. They're Fridays at 6 o'clock at Moksha Yoga Studio, and go to ParadigmShiftLondon.com and Facebook.com/ParadigmShiftLondon to join the group there. And basically, what I was doing today as part of the means to promote it, I was just hanging out at my local Chapters, which is a bookstore here it's a chain bookstore. I know they sort of call it something different in the States, but what I did, I had a poster, and there's a New Age section in the back of the bookstore. So what I did, I took the poster and I sort of folded the edges on it and then stuck it on the bookshelf of the New Age section, and just sort of took a couple books on the left and right of it and pulled them out to keep it secure in there. So for someone who's standing there looking at books, they're obviously going to be able to see it and read it and get the information, but a person who works in Chapters will probably just walk right past it and not even notice it because the design that I have for the poster looks like it's a cover. It looks like it's something that belongs on the shelf, so to speak. So if you have a bookstore or whatever, either talk to them about putting up a poster about your local Paradigm Shift meetings, or just sort of do what I did, just sort of slip it in there. I mean, it's no harm done. It's the people who are going to get a chance to see it are going to appreciate it. So you never know, which is kind of the whole idea with this whole synchronicity thing. Sometimes you just gotta plant a seed and then walk away, and you may never know what happens, but someone might be able to come across it. If it's a pamphlet, just leave it on a picnic table, and then who knows who will show up next, but it might be the exact person who would resonate with what that pamphlet is, and just it would tell them about the community and how to get involved. And it's little things like that actually do go a long way. Those ripples create waves, so for sure. Michael, what's our status update?
Yeah, we're good to go. We have Teal in the queue.
All right, wonderful. So for all those who are listening, I hope you guys are comfortable because we got a great show lined up ahead of us. Teal Scott. And Michael, would you like to introduce Teal right before we bring her on?
Just a second here. I'm trying to be sure that we're not going to lose the show once I make some changes here. Yeah. So just give me 1 second here, and then if you want to go ahead and do the intro, it's fine.
Sure. So for those of you who have been following Spirit Science, you undoubtedly have heard of Teal Scott. She is a wonderful soul, and she's been doing a lot of great work in the videos that she shares, which are called the Ask Teal series. She's covered so many topics that are, and the whole idea is that these topics can just keep on coming and coming and coming, and obviously some of the things that we're going to talk about tonight are going to be topics that have been brought up in our videos, as well as I'm sure we'll venture into some new areas. But to give you little information about who Teal is for those who may not be entirely familiar, first of all, check out her website if you're listening to this right now at www.thespiritualcatalyst.com. So I can put a link for that in the show live chat for those who are listening, even though I'm pretty sure everyone knows how to spell catalyst. But the bio that we have for Teal is, from an early age, Teal Scott displayed signs of extrasensory abilities. Among these abilities were clairvoyance, clairsentience, clairaudience, the ability to manipulate electromagnetic fields, and the ability to communicate with thought forms. There's a really interesting part here, which basically says, because of these abilities, she was targeted by a cult and underwent 13 years of ritualistic abuse and torture. Was that a... Okay.
No, you're good.
Am I so good? That noise sounded a little dangerous. I'm not sure if the audience heard that.
You know what I've noticed, and this is something interesting that you just read that thing about Teal, is that some of the high energy guests we have that come on the show tend to be very disruptive for blog talk. So now this is making a lot more. We've had other folks who come on who have very high energy systems. And
yeah.
Really
yeah.
so
that's interesting, actually.
abilities now that we're having to do so much to keep Blog Talk up and running.
Yeah, let me reread that last sentence. So among these abilities were clairvoyance, clairsentience, clairaudience, and the ability to manipulate electromagnetic fields. If you've seen some of the videos of Teal, there's one where she did an interview on TV, and I know there's like some weird mechanical glitches at the end that actually freaked out the director. So maybe this is purely coincidental, or maybe this is no surprise at all that we're having a couple technical difficulties here, but we're going to get it worked out, and we're going to make the most of it, because it's all about you guys, the listeners, and we want to help you get educated. Whether you're new to this stuff or have been interested in it a while, we want you to be able to definitely get something out of the next hour and a bit that you're going to be spending with us here. So to continue the bio, because of these abilities, she was targeted by a cult and underwent 13 years of ritualistic abuse and torture. She escaped at age 19, and since then, Teal has become a spiritual catalyst, both accepting and utilizing her abilities to remind people of the united, energetic nature of this universe and to teach people how to find bliss in the midst of even the most extreme circumstances. And Teal is also the author of a book called The Sculptor in the Sky, and she is working on another book, a spiritual processes book, and she's also doing some workshops, some synchronization workshops, and the next one is going to be held on August 11th in Salt Lake City, so I'm sure there's some information on her website, so you guys can definitely check that out in the meantime. And Michael, how are we doing?
We are good, so I'll go ahead and bring Teal on right now.
Wonderful.
Hello, Teal. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes. Thank you for your patience with all of our technical issues and difficulties.
That's all right. You guys are experiencing my reality for a bit.
First off, thank you, just for taking the time to come on. A lot of our guests in the room are extremely excited that we have you on today. I think it's just, wonderful that you're able to come out and share this experience with us. And where are you in the world right now?
I am broadcasting tonight from Park City, Utah.
Wow. So tell us a little bit about what it means, because we hear, you're using the spiritual catalyst. Tell us a little bit about what the spiritual catalyst is to you, and for some of our listeners out there who may not be familiar with your work, a little bit of background on yourself.
Well, to me, basically what a spiritual catalyst is somebody who can introduce themselves into a situation and influence change. We all know that you can't cause anybody to do anything. So what I'm doing is introducing a vibration, and then it's the person's decision, conscious or subconscious, to match that vibration which I'm offering or not. My hope, of course, is that the vibration, the new vibration, new information that I'm introducing is going to call somebody into alignment with who they really are.
Mm-hmm. That's one thing that there was an article my friend posted not too long ago, and it was about the whole idea that in many ways, this whole process of what we're going through, I mean, Paradigm Shift Radio is about talking about anything, but one of the common themes that will continue to come up, because this is a big paradigm shift that everyone is going through, is this realization that we are more than our physical body, and essentially these bodies are vehicles, and we are spirit or soul or whatever you want to call it. But in this case, all of us have this innate universal knowledge, but what we're going through is a process of remembering. So it's that job of the catalyst to assist those in that remembering process. And Teal, you're definitely doing that very well and very effectively with your work.
Oh, thank you. I love hearing that,
So, all right, Michael, how's it? You're still with us, that's right? Okay, Michael's
still. I'm just trying to get back on Skype, so go ahead. You have it.
All right, Michael's still just working out a couple technical glitches here. So, Teal, what I think is going to be very beneficial for this episode is that keeping in themes with the term education. There's a lot of people out there who are new to a lot of this stuff, so there's so much information out there. What are some of the essential things that you feel people need to be aware of if they're new to this energy? If a lot of this stuff is new to them for the first time, how would you introduce it to them?
I would introduce them to it by first explaining that you in your shoes right now have all of the tools necessary to know what's right or what's not right for you at the given moment. So it can be really hard when you're sort of navigating through this world of conflicting opinions and all of that. And really, if you tap into your own navigational system, your internal insight as to what is right for you and what is wrong for you in this moment, then you don't have to worry about getting lost in all of it. Instead, you can kind of bounce yourself off of the experience that is being mirrored through all of these teachers and all of this information which is out there and available to the general public.
Mm-hmm. And there are so many teachers, and more of these teachers are beginning to emerge. I shared a link earlier today of Drumvalo Melchizedek's work. Now, what was your learning process growing up? Like, was a lot of it just innate for you? Like, were you taught a lot of this information, or was it you just sort of like tapping into it, so to speak?
I was born with a lot of the information that I have now. I came in with it. I know that sounds odd to people, but I didn't opt into the same process of forgetting when I came in, which is why I remember being in utero. I remember choosing into this life. I remember birth, all of it. But a large majority of my teachings comes from the direct experience I went through being tortured as a kid, because there's nothing quite like suffering to baptize you by fire into the ways of this universe.
Now, I know there is some conversation in the live chat right now. That's something that obviously is a part of your past, and I'll just ask you first, are you familiar talking about that on air, your experiences growing up with the cult? I mean, obviously it was mentioned in your bio, so it is part of your story, and it's something that you willingly acknowledge as part of what's progressed you to where you are now. So.
Oh, yeah, I'm totally open about it because I decided that I'm one of those people that thinks that secrecy is just about the worst thing there is, because if we're going to acknowledge oneness within this universe, my story is everyone's story. Mm-hmm. So I can't be protecting it and feeling shame about it. My freedom really comes from putting it out there, and I think other people's freedom really comes from someone like me saying, yes, I was the kind of person who manifested basically the worst kind of stuff you can manifest in this life, and I can tell you that you create these things just like I can say I created it, and you can get yourself out of that situation. So I think that my story is way, way beneficial to the majority of people who will be hearing it.
Mm-hmm. So if you were to just give us an overview, like what was that story? In terms of the cult and all that. The cult, I air quotes were right there around the cult, or were they literally a cult?
No, it was literally a cult. It was a religious cult called the Blood Covenant. It's basically an offshoot of the LDS religion. They're a lot more like the FLDS. Basically, they believe in the concept of blood atonement. And beliefs like that open the door for a lot of people who are trying to use beliefs in order to justify the things that they are compelled to do, whether that's murder or hurt somebody else or whatever it is. So they believe basically what I'm doing here when I'm laying my hands on somebody and healing them, and what I'm doing when I'm able to talk to ghosts, I guess you could say, is considered a power of priesthood to the LDS religion. And the problem with that is that the power of priesthood is believed to come directly from Joseph Smith to men. Women can't hold priesthood. So if women hold powers of priesthood, then it's seen as a sign of the devil. And so this particular cult singled me out so as to try to sort of torture the devil out of me. It's more like a penitente idea, where in suffering you will find the light of Christ.
So were there times where, with what they were doing though, was it always uncomfortable circumstances for you, or were there times where you felt even welcomed by this community, this cult, so to speak?
No, hell no. No, hell. It was never like that. I mean, I spent the majority of my time with them being tied up in basements and in holes in the ground and participating in ritual sacrifices. It was not comfortable in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, now that's the stuff a lot of people, they think that is almost fiction in a lot of cases. I think that's something that you would think would be in like the Da Vinci Code or what have you, but there are some very dark presences out there in this world, and obviously you've experienced some of it, but what is what they're doing that is just part of the process that we're all sharing here. So I mean, I think for one thing that I've learned in my life is that forgiveness is freedom. Now, would you say, have you forgiven the people who have treated you in such a way? Have you gone through that process? How did you deal with it?
I would say that I go through that process every single day of my life. I don't think that our deepest wounds are something that necessarily disappear completely. They just get more healed in these successive patterns. So I find myself in these situations where I can feel forgiveness. Not only that, feel gratitude towards what I went through because of where I am now. And then other days, the next day I'll wake up and it's all back up again in my face and I've encountered something which shows me basically that I'm not over it, more fears and things like that. So I think that the process of forgiving is a continual process. It's sort of like the things which we really need to let go of, we practice letting go of all day, every day for the rest of our lives. That is the practice of spirituality.
Yeah, most definitely. So I commend you for your courage in a lot of this, because I think you as a feminine role model for a lot of people, like that means a lot for them, for you to be able to share that story and for them to see where you are now and to see that you're going to keep moving forward. And maybe that's something that we can just sort of segue into the next topic here, is the idea of the sacred feminine, because that's something that we're definitely moving towards. In the past, the ego sort of situated itself very much in the male aspect of culture and in personality. But now the sacred feminine is coming into rise, and this is something where I think having a role model such as you within the spiritual community is going to help other females step onto their path and to become leaders within their community. So how do you feel about that, and what words would you have to say about the sacred feminine?
I feel like what we're talking about when we say that we're trending more towards the sacred feminine now is that we're understanding that to live our lives here in a state of allowing, we have to become more like water. By nature, femininity is more like water than it is like something hard, like a rock. It's not really definitive, black versus white. It's more gray. If there's something in the middle of your path that's obstructing you, instead of resisting it and pushing against it, you're going to teach yourself how to allow it and thus flow around it and get past whatever you're up against. So it's this way of being which is much more supple, much more open, much more in tandem with love and acceptance than it is trying to create this world to be exactly what we need it to be in this moment, as if we're resisting what we don't like.
Yeah, when you say that, one of the things that comes to mind is one of my favorite quotes, which is "Be water, my friends," by Bruce Lee, because you do want to constantly be able to adapt, and oftentimes the ego will do that. It will say like, "No, I don't like this change," and it will put up these boundaries, but the universe is constantly trying to teach us things. So if we're able to accept this and be able to see the best in even the worst situations, I think that's definitely going to help us on our path. Would you agree with that?
Oh yes, I would definitely agree.
So one of the questions that we have in the live chat right now is from The Awakening 2, and he asks, what is the best way to achieve what you want spiritually, whether it be astral projection or being more in tune with your higher self? So I know that's kind of a broad question, but again, what is the... Oh, geez, this chat keeps on... Every time someone puts in a chat, I have to scroll back up again. But if you heard me the first time, what is the best way to achieve what you want spiritually? So how would you respond to that?
I would say the best way is to define what it is you want and why you want it. Because when you're asking why you want the things you want, you're sort of brought more into the truth of what you want. So a lot of times we think we want what we want, but when we examine the why, we're brought to the actual root of what we desire. And once you find out what that is, I think the best thing to do is to do what they call your shadow work. Of course, you know me, I'm a deep-sea diver of the psyche, so I'm one of these people who will say, if you go looking for those anchors which are holding you back from what you want and release those anchors, then it will just naturally flow into your experience. We like to approach the spirituality as if you were striving to get somewhere, but everything exists in the moment where you stand, meaning that spirituality is the natural way of being. So if you get out of the way, i.e., unhook yourself from negative programming and things like that, then naturally it will flow into your life as a byproduct, and you won't really need to go do anything to get the spirituality. You will just simply come into alignment with it the minute you stop resisting. So our resisting looks like negative belief patterns, and things like that. Anything that is preventing us from coming into perfect alignment with that exact vibration of source energy, of that which we truly are in our higher selves.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yes, that does. And I wasn't sure. Did I just hear myself come through someone's speakers there? Michael, how are we doing? Just to check back in with you. Are you still with us?
We're doing pretty good. I mean, we're still working the issues here. I'm trying to be sure the show itself doesn't drop off because of all the issues. But the chat is very active. So those of you in the chat, just to make it easy, if you do have a question for Teal, send it to myself or Skull in a private message so that we don't lose it in the scrolling. Because once you all are very active out there, we lose the actual questions. So if you send us a private message, we'll have that little icon on our screens, and we can just pull the questions straight from there. So it'll make it a little easier to make the questions flow from one area to the next. With ease.
Post them in the live chat as well, so other people can see what is being presented and what's being asked, and just sort of talk amongst yourself. But yeah, again, send us a private message. And one of the things that I was just going to wanted to talk about is when I was going through a lot of the learning process myself, one of the things that really fascinated me was this idea that psychics aren't people who are special, so to speak, but rather the idea that we're all actually psychic, and it's just the idea of tapping into this. So was this something that, Teal, would you agree with that, or did you go through a learning process where you sort of realized that everyone can be psychic, so to speak?
I never know that there was anything different with me. If anything, that being brought into the cult basically made me feel like I was a complete freak. But I've always been of the opinion that there's really nothing extraordinary with one viewpoint versus another viewpoint, because in all reality, all of our perceptions are adding to the expansion of the universe. So you can't really say this perception is more valuable than this perception. It's all telling source what it is and what to become. So psychic abilities are completely natural to who we are. When we come in, even as babies, we learn to see by learning not to see the field. So you can't, to focus on an object, you have to ignore the field which is feeding into that object. Some of us have done, I guess some of us had intentions like me to come in and not be able to ignore the field, but I think we can all relearn to see it because we taught ourselves not to begin with. It is more natural for people to be psychic, more natural for them to have extrasensory abilities than not. We learn not to as a sort of coping skill. So I think we're totally normal. Psychic people are normal as hell.
I totally agree, and that's definitely something that we're moving towards, and that's something that I would love to see in the future of youth to come, this idea that we encourage and support and foster the developmental abilities that are natural to us as children, because so much of what happens is, these ideas and these belief systems get placed on us and tell us that, no, you're not psychic, that's just something you watch on the Space Channel and don't even talk about it sort of thing. But I think, and I read this out of a book once, it was a parapsychology book, but it was basically saying that if psychic ability is possible even at all, then what's preventing it from happening all the time? And what you're saying is there is this whole filter that is on our perception every day, and that's something that is sort of hiding the truth from us, and this truth that everything is energy, and you were saying you're referring to the field, and now how would you explain what you define as the field, and in your sense, do you literally see these energies? Because I know there are people who do, and I do to some degree myself, but I'd just be curious as to how you would explain your perception of this field, this light matrix, or whatever you want to refer to it as.
Yeah, I don't perceive negative space at all. I had somebody try to explain to me what they usually see between themselves and another person or an object, and they explained that it's like this clear, like nothing, and that concept just does not make any sense to me, because when I'm in a room, there is no such thing as negative space. I'm breathing in the energy of the plant that's sitting by me right now, and the cup, and we're breathing in each other, and so source energy, we could call this universe this infinite energy. Of course, the three-dimensional mind has absolutely no way of conceiving of an infinite universe because it is a filter. The third-dimensional mind is meant to create a beginning and an end for us because that is a learning experience. But the universe is ultimately this infinite sea of potential. It's an energetic waveform potential. And when that waveform collapses into physical dimension, then you have these things like particles, which we are seeing and experiencing as the physical world. But what's beyond that and what makes that up is just of potential energy. So that's how I would explain the field.
Mm-hmm. Now, for me, and tell me if this is kind of similar to what you can literally see in your vision. I didn't really notice it until about 2009, so I would have been about 21 years old, and I was kind of into doing yoga and stuff like that. But in my vision, and I can still see this today, when I look up into the sky on a clear blue day. Now, this might be a little bit different from what you see, but maybe any of the listeners in the chat, tell me if this is something that you actually see as well, because I'd be quite curious. But if I were to look up into the sky on a clear blue day, I see, the best way I can describe them, as little dots of light, little like particles, all moving around very fast, and they look like water spiders. Is some of the best way I can describe them. They look like flies, a bunch of little flies, but energy. And they sort of dart around, and there's never one that just sort of stays. It's always like phasing in and out of each other. So I'm seeing people in the chat room talk about these. They're saying that yes, I see those light dots. So now I think you might see a little bit more than those light dots. So I'm not. Do you know exactly what I'm talking about, so to speak?
I can kind of visualize what you're talking about. Yeah. To me, it looks like everything looks like static. It looks like this moving, vibrating energy. So I have a very hard time conceptualizing of people as solid objects, if anything is a solid object.
Now, in the sense of your perception being that way, it's always has it always been like that, or do you find that as you have progressed on your spiritual path, it's changed in some way? Have your frequencies tuned into different energies? Is it still changing, your perception?
No, it's always been like that, and it's stayed the way that it is. My ability to deal with it's been what's changed. I see through skin also. So when I drew a picture of what I see when I'm looking at somebody, and one of my friends was like, "Oh my God, that's so creepy. I couldn't live like that." But when I'm talking to a person, I see their skeletal systems, all of the nervous system, basically organs, everything. So my vision doesn't stop at skin either, and it's not like a vision in the mind. It's literally in front of my eyes.
Wow, that's amazing. And what I think of when I hear that is accounts from people who have explained some of their DMT experiences. And I'm sure, Teal, you're familiar with DMT, I imagine, yes?
Yes.
Yes, and one of the accounts that I read was someone was saying that they were experiencing DMT. They looked to the person next to them, and they could see their skeletal system, and they could see the eyes of the person, even though they're sitting there with their eyes closed. And they were like, "Oh my God, this looks exactly like an Alex Gray painting," and that sounds very similar to what you see naturally. So when I piece together parts of the puzzle, what I understand with DMT is that it's through the chemical process, it's allowing the energy that is already there to sort of come in through our natural sight. It's that opening up of the third eye. It's that removing of the veil and seeing what the world around us really looks like, so to speak. It's that code behind the matrix is one of the ways I describe it. But that's fascinating that you are able to see that all the time. Do you correlate your perception as being associated with your third eye being open, and even your pineal gland? Do you think of it that way?
No, not really, because those kinds of ideas, even though they are helpful to some, are kind of a generalization. It's an association which doesn't necessarily exist. It's like us defining up versus down. We only understand that because of the situation we live in. So whether this extrasensory information is coming in one place or another, it was really neither here nor there to me. It was just sort of the reality of my life. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. And again, I'm just going to check in. Michael, how's it going over there?
Yeah. So we have a few questions coming in here from the chat room. So we have another question here from Stephen Bouchard. He asked, how common is it to run into negative entities while astral traveling?
Oh, I love it. I would say that you are going to run into, when you're doing out-of-body travel, anything which resonates with where you are. So if you're the kind of person who does not have healed wounds, you're very apt to run into negative entities. In this universe, regardless of what dimension you're on, it still remains the same, that you can only share the space with something you're a vibrational match to. For this reason, getting out of body and interacting with these negative entities can be a really, really healing experience, because it can be like a mirror of things concealed about you. So I would say they're pretty common, because there's not many people in this reality who have cleaned up the entire turkey pan, so to speak, before they get out of body. But it's not necessary that you run into them. And it's less likely if you're in a super good mood before you go out of body, and the intention you set for going out of body has a very high vibration and a good emotional field, and the likelihood of you running into them is pretty much null.
Yeah, and I just recently also saw your videos on demons and angels. And I really liked that you actually talk about those things, because not a lot of people doing spiritual work even mention the fact that we have those darker aspects. And I feel it's important to understand that the shadows also help us to move through. There's nothing I feel that they're really good or bad. It's just another experience to take us deeper into our own work and into our own journey. So I really do appreciate that you're someone who does actually talk about those things. We did a show recently here where we had a deep discussion about negative energies, entities, thought forms, and the things that we create around us. And then sometimes through that law of attraction, we will bring in some of these experiences that allow us to have those rooms for growth. So some more questions. We have like tons of questions coming in for you, Teal. So another question that we have here is, someone said, let's see, this is Michael Valdez, says that Drumvalo and his followers are teaching how to live through the heart. Does Teal have any suggestions on how to think through the heart and not the brain? Is this needed to go into the fourth dimensional energy?
I think that it's super, super important to get into the fourth dimensional understanding, because our brain and what we would consider our ego thoughts, I guess, are the very thing which really collapses our reality so we can't perceive past it. So in order to move past that and to get into higher realms of consciousness, it's super important to go into the heart space. But the heart space really looks more like coming into alignment with that which I really am, which is going to feel like positive emotion to you. So I'm trying to figure out where to go with this.
Well, I think one thing that may help is that when we talk about the heart space, I think it's good to juxtapose it to the thinking from the mind, or because that's often the idea is that oftentimes with our society we're constantly thinking from the mind, which more sort of just like get this done. Where with the heart, it's more about like the intuition and allowing things to happen as they come. So maybe you can draw on that some more.
Well, getting in touch with intuition really requires separating fear from intuition and thoughts which are aligned with ego. And to do that, you have to understand that intuition is not going to talk to you in the modality of fear ever. So if you ever have any kind of thoughts that pop into your mind and are in line with limiting beliefs or feel like fear to you, that is not a message from the higher self. From the perspective of the higher self, which is what your intuition is really coming from, it is such a huge objective perspective that the opinion from that level is not going to be that something's good or bad. So even if you're getting the intuitive feed that there is something that's going to happen that's potentially negative, it's not going to be expressed to you as a negative thing with negative emotion. It's just going to be a flash of insight, basically. And when you're tapping into intuition, I think the most difficult part into the heart space, the most difficult part for people is to learn trust, because trust is really the vibration of being able to let go and be guided. I guess there's this, I can't remember who said it, but somebody said let go and let God. There are many negative associations we have with that word, but let go and let God is really moving into the heart space. The difficult part of that is saying, okay, I'm willing to trust this process and act on my intuition, even if it makes absolutely no sense, because those of us who are already in this pattern of letting go know that these puzzle pieces that make the picture, they don't come together all at once. You'll just be kind of blindly putting one to the next, and in a while the whole picture will make sense. That trust that the picture will make sense eventually is what is super necessary to move into the heart space.
Yeah, I think that's something that for a lot of us, if we sort of look back on our own personal experiences, you'll be able to see that. You'll be able to see scenarios in your life where events play out over a series of weeks and weeks and weeks, but they almost hit certain chapters or bookmarks where you end up in this place where it just feels right. And despite the fact that you've gone through the troubles beforehand, you look back and you see those obstacles as something that's made you stronger and made you more of who you are and more appreciative of the fact that you are where you are now. Because, sorry, Michael, you're still with us, eh?
Yeah, still here.
Okay, yeah, no, just checking. But yeah, I think a lot of times, if you look back on that, you know, even in terms of relationships that we might have with people, just things that we sort of perceive as being difficult and negative, are definitely, that's only how we choose to perceive them. I mean, we like, even in terms of our emotions, like thinking about, I think one good thing is to sort of detach ourselves from identifying with being an emotion, and this is something that's brought up in Eckhart Tolle's book, New Earth. The idea that don't think about the idea of being angry or being fearful or being mad. Like, no. You're experiencing anger. You're experiencing fear. You're in the same way that you are experiencing like envy or jealousy, and in the same way that you would be experiencing these positive emotions. So, Teal, maybe you have something to expand on from that point, so to speak.
What I want to expand on is that the most important part of this process when moving into the heart space is the total acceptance and love of the self. That is the most important part of getting into this fourth dimensional place that we're wanting to get into, because you are the center of your own reality, which means that in order to increase your vibration, the place to start is with yourself. And so we could talk about 1.5 million ways to line up with the heart space, when I think we could basically do a shortcut. The shortcut is that you could go about your day living in tandem with what somebody who loved themselves would do. I know that I'm like a broken record for this one, but if we'd walk through our day, every single decision we had to make, no matter how big or how small, apple or orange at a grocery store, should I move or should I stay? That kind of thing. Every time we have a decision to make or whenever we don't know what to do with ourselves, we should ask ourselves, what would someone who loved themselves do? The answer to that question is always downstream. The answer to that question is always in alignment with our true selves and in alignment with the heart space. And you'd be surprised, because it sounds really simple, but you'd be surprised when you start doing this type of a practice how in your own way you have been, how you often opt in the opposite direction of what you intuitively know is right for you. And this will cause you to basically practice every day being in alignment. And your reaching fourth dimensional realities is just going to be a natural byproduct of getting into alignment with yourself.
Mm-hmm. Now, just in terms of practicality, I've been getting a lot of new friends added on Facebook, and if anybody else wants to add me, by all means, just facebook.com/skullbabylon. But there have been a few people who have added me who are younger. You know, I'm talking about people who are about like 13, 14 years old, and they're interested in this stuff. So I think for them, in terms of practicalness, what are some suggestions that you would have for people in working towards living out of the heart, so to speak, like finding that balance within their own life, or opening up their psychic abilities? What are some practical suggestions that you have for people?
Oh, gosh. I would say the most practical thing for somebody in that circumstance is to get very, very honest with themselves. To learn basically how to sit down and ask themselves the really, really important questions. Things like, what is it that I really love? What is it that's holding me back right now? What is it that I'm really afraid of? And when you're being super honest with yourself like that, it becomes a lot easier to make decisions based on what your true self thinks, your heart space thinks, versus what your mind thinks and what your parental unit has told you to think and believe. That's number one. Number two is, let me see. I think mindfulness is a super important practice for getting into the heart space. So we can do a simple practice with something like food, where when you get your food, you can sit there and be mindful about what's on your plate. So think about where the carrots came from, that whole process of them growing, being nurtured by the soil, being nurtured by sunlight, realizing how much effort it takes for that to get from where it was, plucked by the farmer, taken to the market, and then ending up on your plate eventually. And you're eating all of that energy, including the sunshine. And you'll start, when you become much more aware of the full process of things and mindful of just how much is going into your life as it stands. Your blessings will start to pop up for you. Positive focus is living in the heart space. And most of the times we totally ignore the blessings that are around us because we're not taught to look for it. We live in a society that teaches us to look for what's wrong and then strive towards what we want. And striving in and of itself is resistance.
Very true.
Yeah, so we've got the mindfulness, we've got the honesty with the self. I'm going to come up with one more, let me think. The practice of listening and understanding. There we go.
Yeah.
Getting into the heart space. Listening and understanding is really where it's at. When you'll notice basically when you have judgments or fears, that you'll come up to a person or a thing or an idea with instant resistance, with instant defensive mentality. And that right there is moving out of the heart space into the ego. So if you can remind yourself to make a practice of the people that you absolutely can't stand, it's a totally invaluable opportunity to step back and say, all right, I'm going to suspend my attitude for just a minute, and I'm going to try to put myself into the full understanding of how this person got to the place where they're at. Then their opinions will make perfect sense. And you'll know you're in deep enough when you realize you would have probably made the same exact decision they made. And that will soften up on your resistance a bit, and you'll be moving more into the heart. And you'll be embracing them instead of resisting them. Listening is very, very important, because you would not believe how much you learn just from listening to a person, trying to move into that space of understanding.
I think that's something that is incredibly crucial, and that's something that I know I've had to go through that process myself, this whole idea of listening, and that's something that has been brought up in some of the conversations that we've had through the Paradigm Shift meetings, and it's something that I just want to reiterate, because I agree, like, the listening thing is so important, because so many of us, we just sort of have, we may not even be really aware of it if we're in a conversation with someone, and they may be bringing, like, we might have said something, and then they might be saying something that's like sort of a, just an addition or whatever. And rather than actually listening, we're just getting ready to think like, all right, like I already have my next like argument for his response, or I already know what I'm going to say. And you're not listening. Like, you're just like sitting there and you're like getting ready to respond. So that's something that, like, we literally have to be more mindful of just relaxing and really listening to what the people are sharing with us when we're in this process of exchanging information. Because remember, it's not just about you, it's really about everyone in terms of helping that collective education process take place. So that's something that has to be mutual. If only one person is listening and the other person isn't, like, that's not a full circle. So it's definitely something that I agree, the listening part is absolutely essential. So I think for all of our listeners out there who are listening right now, just be more mindful of that. And even if you're not having a conversation with someone about sort of any of this esoteric spiritual type stuff, just be mindful of whether or not you are actually listening, because maybe you might not be as much as you could be. So definitely. Now, one thing that I just wanted to hop over to in terms of practicalness, I know relative to mindfulness, meditation is always a very important part. What do you have to say in terms of meditation? Like, how has that played a role for you, and what suggestions would you have for other people?
Meditation has played a huge role in my life, a huge, huge role, because when people are caught in negative spaces, which obviously I had to have been to be in the situation that I was in as a child, getting from a space of real negativity and real victimhood into a space of pure positive energy is incredibly difficult. That is such a huge vibrational gap that it's almost like jumping the Grand Canyon. So basically, meditation stops thoughts. Here we go. We've got this huge, huge thing called meditation, which, of course, is one description we're using for about 1.5 million practices. But the general idea of meditation is to stop thought and to control thought, to the consciousness, the thinker behind the thought. And so stopping thought was super crucial for me to realize, okay, you know what? My thoughts about my experience, I can actually choose them. I have a choice to think or not think them. I have a choice to entertain them or not entertain them. It is very crucial to learn that you can stop thought first before you realize you choose your own thoughts. Before that, you're kind of going, no, my thoughts are just sort of this byproduct constantly of this brain, and I have no control over it, and it's constantly commenting on my experience. But that is not what the brain is meant to be doing. And when you go into meditation, you realize that when you shift into the space of the thinker behind the thought, then you can get into this attitude of really saying, okay, the brain is a tool. I am going to use it to focus on what I want it to focus on and stop letting it run the ship, because it's very unequipped to do that job, and it was not intended to do that job. It's meant to be an interface between spirit and physical. And so but the spirit is in control. We are an extension of source energy.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, did you have more there? I don't want to cut you off. Oh, sorry, say that again, Michael. It's just we had a little breakup in audio there.
You can go ahead. I'm interested in hearing what the comment is.
Okay. Now, what was I going to say exactly? Yeah, sorry. No, I sort of lost the train of thought. Michael, how's it
Teal,
going?
I have a question. I have a question for you, Teal, because you have such a diverse way of engaging spirit, and through all your videos and the stuff on spirit science, and the fact that you're also doing art. Where are you right now in your own evolution as far as how you're connecting to spirit? What new things are coming in for you? And can you talk a little bit about your artwork? Because I do know there are a lot of artists out there, and it seems that a lot of people that even I've been interacting with when I do sessions are engaging more of this creative side and engaging spirit in these new ways that, I have people who never would have thought that they would be doing art out there doing art now. So where do you see yourself going as far as your own spiritual evolution?
My evolution right now, having moved into the role of teacher, is absolutely astronomical. I feel like I'm on the climb to Everest, because I'm at the space where really what I'm working right now is the fact that even being a spiritual teacher in and of itself is its own kind of lesson, and it has its own kind of trappings. So, for example, I'm running into a hell of a lot of experiences with the understanding now that I have no control over what opinions other people have. If I do one thing, like today, for example, I posted a video on money, and as you can imagine, it was incredibly controversial, because you've got a lot of people in the spiritual community that are like, oh my gosh, somebody who aligns with money and who says that money is okay is basically the worst teacher in the world. And then you've got other people who are like, oh, thanks, I feel like I can be wealthy. So you see this dynamic where if I denounce money, I'm a friend to these people and denied by these people. And if I do what I did do, which is post my opinions about money, which is, fairly positive, then I've also made enemies and friends. And so putting yourself out there, basically, like I have done, requires this serious surrendering to your own ego and your own need for affirmation and validation. You kind of have to really put it all out there and be strong enough in yourself and be filling your own cup up enough that stuff doesn't deplete your resources. And also, I'm experiencing this thing now where in the spiritual reality we've got a lot of ideals. We've got ideals about how a spiritual leader must act or must not act. And these ideals become this prison that sort of denies us our own humanity. But by definition, our humanity, that which we are expressing ourselves through, is our link up to spirit. So spirituality is not about transcending your humanity. It is about letting your spirituality express itself through your humanity and individuality. So a lot of times you get into the situation as a spiritual teacher where you're almost afraid to tell people you're having a bad day, because then people say, oh, well, a really evolved person would never have a bad day. And so it requires this
right
for being able to tell people, no, I still have days where I'm focused terribly. What changes is that I know what to do with it when I slip into those modalities. So,
it's interesting because, I think even, too, recently when, Esther Hicks and her husband Jerry just recently passed away from cancer, and a lot of the folks that have been following her for years went into attack mode at the fact that Jerry could actually get cancer and die, even though they were connected to this high vibration being, Abraham, who was bringing in all this wonderful information. But the fact is, we're also living this human experience in this third dimensional energy, And as much as I like to put, love and hope in my cell phone bill and send it in, it doesn't necessarily always work out that way. So I do think, there is that relationship to money that we have to deal with as spiritual people, but, it is part of our experience, and it's something that I think that it's really important to talk about and to be real and to be part of the human experience as well. Not all of us can sit on mountains in India, but we're living the experience. And how have you seen your practice change and how you engage spirit change through social media? Because I think it's this whole new dynamic, things like Blog Talk, things like YouTube, spirit science in itself is just seems to be this integrated experience in spirituality. How have you seen your practice change since you've been engaging the social media more?
I love it. I've been in touch with people in places of the world that I would never have even thought to have contact with. So I love the fact that it's like a virtual relationship, but those connections really do feel real. It doesn't feel like an unreal relationship between me and the people that I'm connecting with on different places around this planet. I'm really bad with technology, though, so I don't feel like I'm just kind of riding this wave and pushing buttons when I'm told to push buttons. Yeah, but I think it's been a really great venue, frankly. I don't know what more to say than that.
I think it's interesting. It gives us this interesting way of connecting now, and things like paradigm shift and even our connection with Skull Babylon here. It's this whole really neat. I think it really increases the speed that synchronicities happen as far as how we're all able to engage in these spiritual discussions and these spiritual connections. So just a little bit more about your art, because how has that been something you've always done, or is this something that has recently started to evolve for you? And how that, I know you do the geometries, and there's an energetic and vibrational form that also moves through your artwork, correct?
Yeah. I'm an insatiable artist. The persona I've kind of had throughout my whole life is the tortured artist, which of course I've moved out into, and now I'm the not so tortured artist. But my art is basically the representation of what I'm seeing as an energetic blueprint. So this energy field of waves of potential energy, the first thing that they collapse into when they come out of potential energy is shape. That's why the universe can be described mathematically. And so these shapes that I'm seeing in the energetic field is what I'm drawing. It's basically like a blueprint for physical reality. So let's say that we were to come up with a vibration of a neurotransmitter, or else a brain chemical like dopamine. That dopamine, before it was a physical chemical, was a pattern, an energetic pattern, which could be expressed mathematically or geometrically. And so I can draw that geometric, mathematic shape like frequency. And the idea is that people that have those in their space will now be tuning their energy to the energy of that particular frequency. So they're like homeopathic.
Yeah, I think just to continue on your art, Teal, because I know I've seen it, and it's really amazing. It's beautiful, just because it's so authentic, and it's not just something that a lot of people when they do art, they're just like, oh, that looks pretty, like what you said. You're recreating something that you're actually seeing to a degree. And for me, when I was going through a lot of this learning process, when things started to click for me was when I started to understand the significance of sacred geometry and how that actually wasn't just a concept, but it was something that reflected literally how the universe unfolds and how it's constantly interconnected with itself in terms of, but basically when you take the idea of sacred geometry and combine it with an understanding of fractals and Fibonacci sequence, to me, that really just helped me understand this idea that this universe is infinite, and the whole idea of the macro and the micro, and as is above, so is below. So, now again, like I'm just thinking back to the idea that how you literally see the world around you as being like more energetic and stuff like that. Like that's just so very poetic in a lot of ways. But how do you feel about sacred geometry? How would you go about explaining what sacred geometry is and the significance of it to someone who may be new to it?
Oh, not mathematically minded me. Let me think. I would explain it in the way of saying that, well, to explain fractal geometry, basically, which is, I think, at the heart of sacred geometry, it's the idea that there's basically in everything, there are shapes that keep repeating themselves over and over and over again. So if you magnify something down to its tiniest magnification, it will be an exact identical replica of the larger whole. And so this is the same as saying as above, so below. It's the same as saying you are God force energy in a physical body. So it's kind of like a mathematical way of understanding that you were made in God's image. Of course, you know, we're talking about God, not meaning this man in the sky that basically made us to look exactly like him, but all that is physical is a reflection of all that is non-physical.
I think one of the things that helped me with the whole sacred geometry thing was this idea that there is infinite space above us and infinite space below us, but where each of us are right now, we are literally each the center of our own universe. And that's something that I just find like really empowering in a lot of ways, because oftentimes, like, I remember when I was younger, people would sort of repeat this idea that, like, be like, oh, you think you're significant? Like, look out at the stars. Notice how small we are? We're just a single speck in this infinite universe. We're not significant at all. But no, rather the alternative to that, like I said, is this idea that each one of us is the center of our own universe. And that's something that I think if people can not just simply get that, but if they can live it, if they can like understand it on a personal basis, then that's really going to help them move forward in a lot of ways with a whole new level of confidence. And this ties in with the whole idea of holographic reality and the idea that our intent, our thoughts, literally are interacting with the energy field around us, and each one of us is constantly creating our own reality. So it's not just one single reality that we live in. It's like a shared dream experience where all of us are instantly phasing in and out of like infinite parallel dimensions. And this is something, it sounds complex. It sounds sort of just a little fringe, but to me it makes sense. And I think more people are beginning to innately understand what this is all about too, because this isn't something that I'm just sort of like saying, oh, it makes sense because I read it in a book. Like, no, it makes sense to me because this is like a principle of higher knowledge, so to speak. This is something that all of us already know as spirit, and it's something that we're going through the process of remembering. So what we were saying earlier about the brain and the mind, I agree. I think the mind is just a hub for spirit, for higher energy to work through, but we are most definitely not our mind, by no means alone. So, yeah, some very cosmic stuff. So it's great to be able to talk about it and explain it. Now, how's everybody doing in the chat right now? We're just going to do a little bit of a shout out and quick shout.
The chat is off the chain right now. The chat is getting a little crazy.
And guys, this is the most listeners that we've had on the show today. This is only our third episode, and it's going to continue to get bigger from here, because in our next week we are going to be having another guest on, a man by the name of Free Spirit. He has a YouTube. He's been doing his videos of his own, and he has a book as well about communicating with beings from outside of our planet, so to speak, in other parts of the universe. So that's what's going to be on the agenda for next week. But I just want to let you guys know in the chat room that this show is not just about us sitting here and talking to our guests. This show is about you getting involved. So in future episodes, when we don't have a guest lined up, that means that the show is totally going to be open to us, and we are going to be having callers come in, and we want to get everyone involved in this whole collective education process, because you don't have to be a big internet celebrity in order to be on the show. We want this to be a level platform where anybody can step on and have a chance to share their insights and help piece together this cosmic puzzle, so to speak. So, Michael, I know we have talked about the idea of having some guests on the air with Teal to do a little bit of a chat. Is that something that we are ready to move forward with?
Yeah, so this is what we're going to do. So those of you who are listening who are on in the queue right now. So of course, we want to try to get as many people on as we can. So if you can, just come on. We'll do a quick question with Teal. So try not to monopolize the space once you come on. So if you have a question, think about it before you come on. Ask your question, and then we'll let Teal respond. And we're going to try to get through as many people as we can. And remember, folks, those of you who are out there, when we do these types of shows, this is a collective energy. So if your question doesn't get answered, listen to the answers that are coming through, because a lot of the things that we're talking about, a lot of the questions that will get asked, will probably be the same questions that you have. So just because we don't get to yours doesn't mean that you can't also contact Teal through her website, through Spirit Science, and listen to her videos and to get more connection, and just keep tuning into the show. So we're going to go ahead and take some callers. And let's see. Let's go with our first caller here. Hello, caller. Your first name and where you're calling from.
Hello. Hi.
Hello.
Hi, my name's William.
Hello, William. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Los Angeles, California.
Excellent. And what is your question for Teal?
I want to know what Teal sees for my finances, like my current job, and where she sees that going.
Now, sorry, I was just going to say, Teal, do you normally do, this is more of almost like a traditional psychic read, so to speak. Is this, do you do these?
Not usually, but...
Oh, sorry.
No, it's all right.
Yeah, so William, so then what I suggest is we do those types of shows through this line. So just not tonight. So call back in. We have other shows that happen throughout the week.
No,
the next show we have.
Yeah, how about I'll do this one, and then that can be the last. Ready?
There you go.
Oh, thank you.
All right, go ahead, Teal.
So basically, all right, let me see what I'm getting really quick. Okay. So basically, there are beliefs which exist within you which are preventing the money from coming to you through the venue. So the very thing which made you line up with the career that you're in is not a particularly beneficial belief.
Okay.
So it's not looking vibrationally super good.
And if I said, what about going into real estate, what would your vibration be with that?
It looks like more freedom. When it comes to real estate, for you specifically, it's going to be a hell of a lot of... So I don't want to say work, because lining up with things is effortless. It's not supposed to mean work. But if you're going to come into alignment with something like that, then that looks like doing a hell of a lot of focus on what it would look like to you to be successful at that job, more so than you ever focus on lack. Because with a profession like you're speaking, the issue there is that there's a hell of a lot against you in terms of the way that people think about people in real estate. And so, so it's really important that you line up your vibration relative to the people. Line up your vibration with expecting the best from them so that you can be a match to the kind of clients who are going to be in alignment with you versus in resistance. Because there's a good bit in your vibration currently which looks like I expect resistance from people. Does that make sense?
Oh, resistance?
Yeah.
Is that what you said? Okay. Yeah, because I currently teach, and I like doing that, but then I was thinking of going to law school, so I'm like at a quandary, like, which way is the best way for me to go? I think that's the question I should have asked, because I didn't...
Yeah, so the best thing, William, is just always to trust your own intuition. Just really trust what you're feeling drawn to do. Do the thing that you feel the most aligned with. And this is the year where a lot of people are making bigger transitions into different areas. So allow yourself to, try out different things. Allow yourself to move into greater states of growth. If you're feeling yourself in a place of limitation, go into a place of expansion. Allow that motion to happen for you. And I feel some changes coming for you in the next couple months. So just allow yourself to maintain in that space. Just allow yourself to, tune into shows like this where you're tuning into other spiritual aspects, different ways to connect into reality so you can create more positive outcomes for yourself. Okay?
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you very much. I appreciate that help, really.
Thank you, William.
All right, thanks, William.
All right, and just for all the listeners out there, nice. I want to say nice save by Michael, just because that's kind of his alley. He does the whole psychic reading as a part of his profession or job or whatever you want to call it. And for those who are listening to the show, check out Michael Brazel's shows other times during the week where, yeah, like he said, that's where you will get a chance to sort of call in and ask those type of questions in terms of a life path with the real, actual psychics, so to speak. But that was funny.
Every now and then, some baby mama questions might squeeze through, and we will do our best. And we had it happen before, but we'll definitely filter them out. So next caller here.
Going to keep moving forward here, guys. So, if you've got a question, line up in the queue, and let's bring on the next caller here if we've got a question for Teal.
Area code 206, your first name, where are you calling from?
Hi, my name's Serena, and I'm calling from Seattle.
Hey, Serena from Seattle. What can we do for you tonight?
Well, you really got my curiosity with your conversation about how to shift past a barrier. Like, I've experiencing these psychic attacks, and I'm trying to figure out what's the best way to change this reality I've created to allow this to happen. And it's like, I've been using more fighting back techniques, but they haven't been really that good. I mean, it just continues more of the same. And I'm thinking, I really want to know how to transition more into that gray area and let things flow so I could step out of this situation. And I was just wondering if Teal had any more advice she could add to that.
Of course I do. So first of all, whenever you are trying to fight back or protect yourself, you are in a negative vibration. So I'm kind of what you would call one of those controversial people, because I like to tell people that the idea of psychic protection is pretty much the worst thing you can do for yourself. Because if you're going to align with that protection, then you've already included in your vibration, which is unnecessary, the idea that there's something to protect against. So that's the problem idea number one. The basic underlying belief which you have going, which is inviting this kind of a situation into your life, is the idea that you can be taken advantage of. The idea that, you may hear it and it becomes kind of trite that you create your own experience, but if you're experiencing things like psychic attack, the actual root belief is that I don't create my own experience. And that's why you feel like you can be taken advantage of. That's why you feel like it's possible to become a victim. And so those are the beliefs which have to be changed. Shifting from a space of I can be taken advantage of to I literally can dictate absolutely everything that comes into my experience. And if I vibrate at this very high level of trust, I cannot be a match to something that is untrustable. Does that kind of make sense?
It does. And I understand that on an intellectual level. I don't know how to step into that belief system, though. That's a real challenge for me.
It's all about, so have you discovered some of your limiting beliefs? That one that I mentioned was one of them, but we've all got just a huge pile of these negative beliefs, basically. Yeah. So if you can find the actual belief, which I've got a lot of videos that explain how to find these core beliefs, which are the real ones that are at the root of your experience. But when you find that, you've got to find a way to shift the belief. And that is a super easy process. The best way to go about this is by realizing that a belief is a lot like a table. So the belief itself is the tabletop. And all of the evidence you're using to support that belief are like the legs of the table. And there's super glue that is super gluing the legs of this table to the floor. The super glue is emotional super glue. So it's whatever that belief is causing in terms of benefit to you. So the emotional glue could be something like, when I have this belief like I'm not good enough, I get to feel pity from people, and that pity feels like love. So that's the emotional superglue. So once you look at the emotional superglue and you say, all right, that is not benefiting me, the benefit I'm getting out of this is not enough to match up with the detriment, then the emotional superglue, even in that thought and that decision, is going to dissipate a bit. And then your job looks like knocking out all of the evidence that you're using to support the belief. So if you are using evidence like, okay, I'm worthless because I failed at this thing when I was in college, then you need to find different ways to look at that. Well, I didn't fail. Another way to look at that is this. So you're basically undermining the things which you're using, the evidence you're using to support the belief. And then once you've done that process and thought of many things as you can possibly think to undermine the evidence that you've been using, you replace the new belief, whatever you would prefer to believe, with new evidence, which you got to go looking for. And this is the benefit of the technology age, is you can literally get online and type in, I create my own reality, and you can start aligning with it. You're doing it even right now. Even in listening to me talk, you're replacing your belief that I don't have control over my own reality. So anything that you can engage in that strengthens that instead of strengthens your idea of victimhood is a perfect way to go. And also, even in the moment, like if you're feeling these psychic attacks, you can step back and say, instead of moving into the fear of this, I understand in this moment that I'm falling back into this belief that I don't create my own reality. Even stepping into that space of awareness changes the vibration you're in.
Well,
I like that.
Sorry, go ahead. But that's excellent. I want to add. One thing that this is something that I can't. Yeah, I must have learned it somewhere, but it's something I've definitely experienced for myself. When it comes to asking something from the universe, keep this in mind. And Teal, I'd be curious as to what you would have to say on this. Basically, the universe doesn't understand the word no. So when you want something, say you're in a situation where you're trying to acquire health, rather than saying, I don't want to be sick, say, I want to be healthy. Because when you say I don't, or use that negative, that sort of no word, when you say I don't want to be sick, all the universe actually is hearing is I want to be sick, I want to be sick, and then evidently you attract that to you. Now, Teal, does that coincide with your teachings or your understanding?
Oh yeah, 100%. There is no such thing as no in this universe. This is an inclusion-based universe. It is a reflection of what we're focused on. So negative focus is still focus. So if we resist anything, that means our focus is placed upon that very thing which we resist, meaning that we will manifest it into our experience. The universe does not ever hear don't want. It hears through focus. It doesn't care what your words are. It doesn't care what your actions are. It cares what your focus and thoughts are. So if your thoughts are placed on something that doesn't feel good, that's going to intensify. If your thoughts are placed on something that feels good to look at, that's going to intensify and then manifest into your experience.
Yeah, your energy flows where your attention goes is a very good way of putting it, an easy one to remember. And just a quick tip for any of the people out there, and this was given to me by my good buddy Derek, who's also part of the Paradigm Shift London, and actually in the recent video that I put up. But he sort of taught me this in terms of manifesting and creating things for your own reality. He created this idea of the 17-second rule. So say if there's something that you're thinking about in your mind that may not be totally pleasant, or it might be something negative, or it's something you're reflecting on the idea that bothered you earlier in the day, don't invest any more than 17 seconds into it, or else you'll start manifesting it, so to speak. Now, this is sort of just like a specific thing, but the idea of 17 is just sort of an arbitrary number to help you remember, so to speak. So say there's something that happened earlier in the day, have that 17-second rule in play. So just sort of be like, all right, yeah, I know this happened. Yeah, that kind of bothered me, but then let it go after that, and then just sort of move on. Because if you keep that in your mind for more than 17 seconds, so to speak, then you literally are going to try to attract energy back to you. So I think that's something that's just a little quick tip for everyone, and it definitely works for me. It's just something to help keep in mind when it comes to manifesting your own reality. So I think
hey, Skull?
Did that. Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, your mic is cutting out. Just so you know.
Really?
We're getting, so we got, you have a robotic voice from the chat, so you just entered into robot mode. See, we're descending. Yeah, so, and then too, just when you're manifesting, remember, we're one of the few languages that actually use the word I am, and we sometimes internalize a lot of these things that may be more negative. I am sick, I am hungry, I am these things that may not be as positive, and we tend to take those things deeper within ourselves. There's these sub-affirmations that we typically will run, and the universe will bring to you whatever it is you're calling for. So you have to be careful how far into yourself you take limiting affirmations, because those things can, in fact, draw in those negative experiences. And it's just those negative experiences that show up really are just experiences that are there to help you release that sub-affirmation. So there is really never any good or bad, but just, allow yourself to daily connect into intuition so that you can see where you are within that space.
And I'm getting sort of, this does tie in with the conversation, so I'm just going to add it into our what we're talking about here. But Teal, what are some tips in terms of manifesting what you want within your life? What would be some tips that you have, some practical tips in terms of sort of making affirmations for yourself?
Tips for making affirmations?
Yeah, or the broader question of, how do you attract what you desire into your life in a practical sense for those who are listening?
I would say that it begins with the attitude of appreciation. Appreciation just basically means looking around your environment and your life and yourself for those things which feel good to look at. Appreciation is the exact vibration of love. They are no different. Those two vibrations are no different. So moving into an idea of appreciation versus focus on lack is super, super important, if not the most important part of this whole process. So people will talk a lot about using gratitude, where they look around their life for the things they're thankful for. That will shift your vibration from one of lack to one of abundance. So that's key number one. Oh yeah, most of us keep a gratitude journal, by the way. I will always start and end my day with a gratitude journal every day of my life, just because it gets me into that in tandem vibration versus resistance vibration to manifesting. Two, we have to quit downplaying the role that mind plays in reality. Visualization is super, super important, and we like to say, oh well, focusing on all those mind things isn't really as effective as action, but it is 10 times more effective than action, because you can never make up for in action what you lack in focus. So doing those visualizations where you feel really good about whatever it is that you are visualizing. I mean, visualize the reality of what you want to have come into your life to such a degree that you have a very hard time remembering where you're coming back to even. Really involve yourself in every single detail of that visualization. That's step number 2. Step number 3 is develop a different relationship with this universe. We've got to shift our ideas of this universe from one of like the parent role, where it gets to deny you, to one of the fact that the universe is always trying to add blessings to your life. The universe is always offering abundance. It's your decision, and ultimately your free will, whether you're going to resist or allow that. And you resist it by focusing in another direction than the vibration of what you desire. So really trusting and letting go of it after you have come up with this idea that you want is paramount. So that's important. Another one is, people like doing vision boards, which I really like a bit. Basically, we're going to make this really simple and tell you that when it comes to manifestation, what you want to be doing is getting yourself mentally into the exact vibration of having what it is that you want. So the more you focus on things that feel good, the more you're in vibrational alignment with your desires. So do things that feel good. It's really that simple. You don't want to be focusing on things that make you feel bad, because that is the antithesis of manifestation, the antithesis of manifesting what you want to have come into your experience. So surround yourself with you already have what you want. Visualize what it would feel like to have what you want, and get yourself into the vibration of really feeling like your life is a good one. And then, by nature, when you don't need it anymore, it will come into your experience, because need, of course, is lack. It's the lack of whatever you desire. So when you shift from need into appreciation, those things will begin to manifest. Literally everything that you have created for yourself will begin to manifest into that reality, instead of one of resistance and one of focus on what you don't have.
I think just to add on to that in terms of affirmation, Jordan, our good buddy, he's actually from Paradigm Shift, Barrie, Ontario. He had the idea of just using the affirmation "I am." So that's something that you can even work into your meditation practices. I've done this before as something to focus on. Just have a phrase that you choose. Say like, "I am happy. I am light. I am healthy. I am positive. I am balanced." And that affirmation of "I am" is something that is very, very powerful when it comes to helping create your reality. And I agree. And just sort of going back to your idea of a gratitude journal, I think when whenever we have something, try writing it down. And this is a practical tip for anyone who's listening. If you have something that you want to manifest, write it down in your journal. Because now I'd be curious as Teal as to what your thoughts or your take or your information you have to share on this. But when you literally write something down, there's something that takes place like within this reality that's a little bit different opposed to just existing in your head. When you actually write something down, it like brings it more into this matrix. There's this whole idea of it coming from the subconscious and into the physical reality and being reflected by the conscious. And so if you have something, write it in a book, and by writing it, that's literally going to help it manifest into this reality. Is that something that coincides with what you've come to understand, Teal?
Oh, yeah, for sure. And even just the focus it takes to go get a book out and write it down versus just think it, which happens immediately, puts you in that vibration longer. So it takes maybe 20 seconds to write a sentence down, whereas it takes, half of a second to think something. So the writing something down is going to mean that you are in that vibration longer than if you just have the thought. But I wanted to add something super important with regards to affirmations. So we were talking earlier about, writing the I am whatever for vibration, which is super, super awesome, and it's the best way that you can go about affirmations, assuming that you agree with what you're writing down. This is where everybody goes wrong with affirmations, and they basically fail people, is because when you write down something like I am rich, and you know that you're not rich, writing that affirmation down, you will feel this emotional sort of resistance within you relative to what you've just written. And that's because writing that down will make you more aware of where you aren't than where you want to be and are. And so it's actually a detrimental affirmation. So the affirmations we need to be picking are the ones which feel super good that we do believe. So you may not right now believe that you are wealthy, but you may believe I have food in the refrigerator which makes me feel wealthy, or makes me feel abundant, rather. And focusing on those types of stuff make it easier for you to jump eventually to the idea that I am rich without having it contradict your own intelligence, feel like a lie to you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, caller, you're still with us, are you not?
No, we've lost a
okay. All right. Well, thank you, caller, for calling in. And I just, we only have about 20 minutes left in the show, and I know there's a few things that I've seen come up in the chat that I would like to be able to get to. And perhaps we can sort of tie these in together, but one of the things that I'm always fascinated in, and this is something that I think anyone can sort of relate to because it's common throughout our life experience, is the idea of death and the idea of communicating with those who have passed on, who have gone through that phase of sort of returning to like the spirit, that experience of being purely spirit, whereas right now we're existing more in the vehicle. Teal, what do you have to what can you share with our audience to help them understand how this universe sort of works in terms of us being able to communicate with those who have passed on, whether it be through some sort of not necessarily channeling, but even through our dreams? Would you say that that's definitely something that when somebody goes through that experience where they are with a loved one in their dream, how would you go about talking to them about that?
I'm not understanding the question.
Oh, okay. So the question would just be in terms of the topic of life beyond death, and the idea that when we're dreaming, we're existing in our astral body, so to speak, in the higher dimensional realms, and these realms are the shared realms that we go to when we're between lives. So while we're in these realms, we can communicate with other spirits and entities, such as those who have passed on. So I think if you just want to expand on that to help educate our audience on what's sort of happening in all this.
Okay, so basically, here I'm going to put forth a different idea.
Sure.
So, from what I have experienced and understand, having come in here, when we die, we all join the source perspective. So that is the highest dimensional reality that there is. Now, we are multidimensional beings, meaning that source energy can reactivate a thought form. A thought form is basically the idea of you, the idea of an identity before it is physical form. So when you die, you pull out of your physical structure, you also pull back from your thought form. And your thought form either stays because it has enough energy and reverberates, which is what a ghost is, or else it dissipates and now only exists on the certain dimensions which are above this, which is much different than like a guide. A guide would be something where source energy itself is entirely connected to that thought form, and it is utilizing that thought form, not fully into physical form, but utilizing that thought form in fourth dimensional reality for the benefit of us. So when you're out of body, in out-of-body experiences, or dreaming, which is an out-of-body experience, interacting with dead loved ones is often done because you're in that state, basically. You can have a full sensory experience of them, meaning that the source energy that is the universe may choose to reactivate the thought form of a dead loved one so as to help you relieve issues that you've had in your life while you are dreaming.
Yeah, like that's something that I've always sort of had a lot of conversations with in terms of dreaming, because dreaming is a very popular topic, and maybe we can just get a little bit more into that in helping our newer listeners understand like what are dreams, so to speak. But the idea that so much of what happens in our dream is often a projection of ourselves, and so when we have an experience of being with a loved one, is there a possibility that may just be a projection from ourselves, and then how do we know if it's actually their entity, their spirit, so to speak? Do you have an answer for that or a response?
I think it's important not to really ask those questions. I think the most important question is to ask how you feel. Because those of us who have had those experiences know what it's ultimately offering us based on how we feel. So, basically, Newtonian-based science does not recognize the element of spirit as it relates to physical life, you know? So because of this, though we can see that portions of the brain are active or dormant during sleep, the search for the answer to why we dream is sort of something which is left to the realm of philosophical theory. But what's basically happening is that when we're out of body, we are encountering our thought forms, ones which we have put there through our own experience. And ultimately, when we dream, we are in source perspective with total non-resistance for a time, and then when we come back in, which happens in split seconds, we are encountering our own thought forms, the manifestational symbols of things we have been thinking in our day-to-day life. And when we come through that in split seconds, it's downloaded to the brain. Literally, the brain registers those thoughts according to how it understands things. And so there's really no way to sort out what's real versus not real, because the brain is what's registering what you encountered out of body into a way in which it can understand things.
Mm-hmm. I think lucid dreaming and dreams and astral projection, that's always a topic that I find a lot of people who may be new to this stuff are always, that's almost like a gateway for them to be brought into a lot of these conversations, because obviously all of us do experience the process of dreaming, and you know, whether or not we remember our dreams every night, we are still having them. So I just sort of wanted to ask that question. What would be some tips, so to speak, if a person is interested in pursuing the practice of exploring their dreams? What suggestions would you have for them?
I would tell a person to begin learning how to do out-of-body projection, because the out-of-body experiences and getting into the vibrational stage and all of those types of things that have to do with out-of-body is what's going to enable you to recognize that you are in a dream, but not so deep that you don't understand that you have conscious control. So it's all about developing a comfort with the idea of navigating your own mindscapes. And there's a ton of tools out there. I'm not a reader. I'm sorry, everyone. I'm not a reader. But I know that there's a bunch of people out there who have written some really, really good books on how to get out of body, and I think those are super important because it translates to your dreams. The more you get out of body, the more when you get into a dream, you'll suddenly have this point happen where you understand, oh, I can choose to float from here to there, and at that point you've gained your lucidness in that thought form scape. So one of the best ones that we think, I think William Bullman, I've been told, I think that's his name, has a book called Out of the Body, or Adventures Beyond the Body, I think it is. And I've heard a lot of people tell me that really helped them to understand the different phases of out-of-body and how to utilize getting from where you are in your physical life and focus into the type of focus that allows you to basically leave your body behind and have your consciousness transcend this particular space and dimension.
Michael, do you have anything you want to say? You've been a little quiet.
Yeah, I'm just listening. I'm just watching the chat. We have lots of questions still coming in, and I think I like something. As I do so many of these shows, it's nice for me to be able to sit back and just absorb some of the knowledge that's coming in. And as a medium, I come through a little bit different perspective when it comes into having the after-death communication happen. And, some of us come in, and everyone, like we talked at the beginning of the show, everyone is psychic and everyone has the ability to tap in. And the way I like to look at it is that, all of us come in with like a dial-up modem, and we can upgrade at any time we choose to start doing a little bit deeper work. And a lot of people are asking how to establish that communication with those that have crossed over. There's a lot of books out there that can give you that guidance, but it really starts with communicating with that inner part of yourself, the soul self, that deep part of the intuition. It is the balancer at the gate that allows that information to flow into you through those other aspects. When you do channeling and those types of things, that information that comes in is coming in through that filter. So the best way to start establishing communication and direct communication with those that have crossed, those that are still in this non-tangible reality, guides, angels, and depending on where your interest lies, the first step is really developing that direct connection to your intuition. So, don't forget that the intuition is the passenger in the car that's constantly present, and it allows you to have that greater access to these other things that are right on the periphery. But first, start developing that deep connection with that thing that's right inside you always.
And I was just going to say, for those who are listening, and go back and listen to episode 1 of Paradigm Shift. The episodes are all archived, so you can always go back and listen to this one as well. Just visit paradigmshiftlondon.com/PSR and take a listen to some of the conversation that came up in episode 1. There was some very good conversation about lucid dreaming there, but one of the things that, just in terms of practical tips, if you are interested in pursuing, exploring your dreams more, some of the simple tips would be to start writing down your dreams and to start practicing meditation and to start developing your awareness within this waking reality, and then to even do reality checks. So right now, just sort of take a second, like, where are you? Like, you're sitting in front of your computer, you're listening to some guy talking over the internet about dreams and stuff like that. Like, this isn't something that you normally do. Like, are you dreaming right now? Like, pull your finger. Does it stretch out in some weird rubbery fashion? No? Okay, then maybe you're not dreaming right now. But if you develop this habit of just sort of being more aware of where you are in your physical body and just your presence in your everyday life, then that is going to carry over into your dreams. So when you're in a weird situation in your dream, just sort of be like, hold on, where am I? And then pull your finger in your dream. And if it does, it'll stretch out, and you'll be like, whoa, that's not normal, because in our dreams, when we sort of start interacting with our physical body, we realize that it's definitely not physical, because the whole physicalness of this reality is only sort of something that occurs within a denser vibrational state, which is a dimension that we are in now. But as you go up in the higher dimensions in a relative fashion, things aren't as dense. You can pass through objects. Time doesn't exist in the same way. You can experience this. You can sort of travel places instantaneously. Thoughts manifest far quicker. And I think that's something, maybe just to bring that back full circle, is the idea of manifesting thoughts. When you're in your dreams, you can practice that firsthand. The idea that you can manifest anything within your dreams through the intention of your mind, and it works the exact same way on this level, but because of our denser state, it just takes a little bit more time. It's not as instantaneous, but essentially the same universal principles are still in play. So I think, those are just quick tips there. And maybe, Teal, did you have any more tips that you wanted to add in terms of lucid dreaming and awareness within dreams and all that?
I think the most important question to ask about dreams is, how is the way that I'm feeling in this dream echoing in my waking life? Because your dreams are the creations and manifestations of basically what you've been experiencing in your physical life. So basically, by asking that question, when have I felt similar emotions to this in my waking life, you can start to decipher your mind's own unique dream symbology. Because dreams are one of the most important indicators of where you have been putting your focus in your day-to-day life. Because of this, they can kind of serve as a priceless evolutionary tool. They can help you to recognize and solve the internal conflicts in your life before they manifest into your physical reality. So your dreams can act kind of like a preview of what's to come. And if you can delve deeply with awareness into what the thought-based condition that the dream offers awareness of, a healing process can begin. So your dreams basically have been created because of what your focus in your day-to-day life is. So when you're asking yourself, I'll give you an example. I had this dream of a whale, and I'm deathly afraid of whales, right? So I asked myself, what am I feeling? How in my day-to-day life am I feeling the same as in this particular dream relative to the whale? And I figured that it's the exact same. I found out it's the exact same emotion that I used to have when I was basically back with the cult that I was growing up with, and I was headed into a situation that I didn't know what was going to happen to me, which happened quite a bit. And the minute that I identified that, I realized that my brain had turned the symbology of all of that kind of fear into the symbol of a whale, and that was what I was encountering. So this dream, basically, I could decipher it in a very real way and understand what it is that I'm really resisting, which is a lot of fears that had to do with my childhood still. So I think that dreams can be a totally invaluable tool in terms of figuring out how to improve your waking life. That's my favorite thing about dreams, personally.
Mm-hmm. It's the whole idea that we are learning in both states, and I think that's something that I want to definitely see more of in terms of our culture, because so many people, if they're not getting anything out of their dreams, they're only living half of this experience, so to speak. So open up to the idea that if you can be conscious within your waking state and be conscious within your dream state, you're getting more of what this reality has to offer. So take it upon yourself to put that effort in just being more aware in your dreams, because definitely those dreams are there to teach you lessons. And if you're learning lessons in the astral within your dreams and learning lessons within your waking state, then you're going to notice that acceleration within your life path. So definitely. And as it is right now, guys, we have about 6 minutes left in the show. So Michael, how do you want to take this from here?
We're actually ranked down to the last 4 minutes, so
okay.
It's a little bit echoed from the time that's on thing. But Teal, I just want, if you could just leave our guests with just any message, what would that message be?
I think the message that I would leave people with is that the most important thing about spirituality is not that we transcend the physical lives that we're living. The most important part about spirituality is that we really embrace our lives that we're living in the current moment that we're in, so that we're not trying to escape anything, but really trying to embody that which we really are in a physical way. And so there's nothing wrong with you. That's a message that everyone needs to understand. There is absolutely nothing wrong with any of you. You are in the perfect space for your own expansion right here in this moment. The only question you get to ask then is, I get to create my own reality, so what is it that I want to create for myself? And that's without resistance to that person that I am right now, because that person that I am right now is really the basis for who I am going to be. So embrace where you are, even if that place is not a super fabulous place. It is part of the experience and journey that is you, which is what you came here for ultimately. You came here because of the experience. You didn't come here so that you could suffer and then escape the experience. So figure out what it is that really gives you passion. Figure out what it is that really brings joy into your life and go in the direction of that. And accept yourself for absolutely every part of you, even the stuff really uncomfortable to look at. Because that love will really cause you to drop through the other side of your suffering and experience a kind of life which right now you can probably only dream of. But it is available to you. It's available to every single one of you the minute that you start to move into a space of allowing and love and out of the space of resistance. That's basically what I would say to people.
Awesome.
Awesome. Very awesome. So, guys, there you have it. our wonderful guest for the evening, Teal Scott, and there's so much more that she has to offer in terms of all these lessons that we are all going through. So again, check out her website, thespiritualcatalyst.com, and as well as her YouTubes, which are linked through there. And every Saturday, there's new episodes of Ask Teal that go up, and those are usually posted through Spirit Science. So check out the Spirit Science Facebook page, and on that, I would also say, if you haven't yet, join us on the Facebook for Paradigm Shift Radio at facebook.com/Paradigm Shift Radio to stay up to date with the future shows that we'll be having. Michael, what do you have to say before we wrap things up here?
Yeah, so if you haven't clicked the follow button on the main show page, be sure you do click that button so you stay, in tune with all the stuff that's coming here on this channel. Our next show is going to be Monday night, myself and David Salisbury bringing you The Psychic and the Witch. We're going to be talking about the God particle. So it's going to be a really interesting show. We're talking about the science of magic and talking about some of the ethics when it comes to bringing science and magic into tandem with one another. So a lot of great shows of the week. We have a lot of great guests coming on. Teal, I really thank you so much for coming on and your patience with all of our technological faux pas. But thank you again for a really great show tonight.
Thank you for having me on. It was fabulous.
Excellent.
All right, guys.
So
well,
everyone,
I'm sure you learned something. And this is Skull Babylon. Thank you for listening. And Michael, go ahead.
Yeah, and this is Mike Brazel, Psychic Medium, here on the Michael Brazel Show. Each and every week we bring you lots of really fun things from across the spiritual spectrum. Click the show, follow us button. Tune in every single week, every Saturday night, 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here for Paradigm Shift Radio, an interactive experience in consciousness evolution. So thank you all once again. You are all beautiful, you are all loved, and you are all divine. Thank you for joining us.
See you in the future.